The Stop Killing Games movement has already won. We're going to explain to you why here on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is a topic that was heavily requested by people in my audience, and I've seen it all over the internet. And finally, I've had time getting through all the other topics to get to this one, and I think it's important because we're coming to the close of a very long and hard-fought campaign, and now is a time to push it over the top, as well as to explain some basics here and how this strategy worked, why it worked, and what happened there. Of course, this is a Fast Facts premiere. If you keep liking the Fast Facts format, let me know in the comments below. So let's get into it without any further ado. So the Stop Killing Games movement, this largely, and this is my basic explanation, skimming over a lot of things, but giving you some background, it came out of Ubisoft and their game, The Crew. And much like many other games, and I've talked about this in many other contexts, but many companies are moving towards games as a service. So no longer as a good or a product, but as a service. And insofar as that, they believe that that service can be terminated anytime they want. And The Crew was no different. The Crew is a game that was at one point supported by the company, but when they felt it wasn't, financially working out, they said, nope, we're pulling the plug. And now this game you bought is just useless. It's garbage. You can't use this anymore. There's no offline mode. There's no private servers. It's just something you have to throw away because you can no longer play this game. It is now an unplayable game. So rightly so, people were upset about this. People said, hey, wait a second. When you buy a game, you're expecting to be able to play it. And you're expecting that even regardless of what the company does, you can play it. I'm still playing games that are from companies that are now defunct on my older console, stuff like that. You got old Game Boy games, old Nintendo games. Even if those are no longer supported, even if the company that made those is out of business, you can still play those older games. And the same goes for a lot of old software, etc. Even if it's no longer supported, you can still use that. And also, companies have really allowed it for the older stuff for private individuals to have updates, patches, etc. Of course, Ubisoft having none of that, allowing for none of those exceptions and saying, nope, you can't play the game. Well, the big key here, and let's get into is first the legal education side, because of course this is always educational and entertaining, is the good versus license. And a good is a tangible product being exchanged. So old school games were treated like goods, and same thing with stuff like movies, videos, old school stuff was mostly treated that way. And the law generally involving goods favors consumers. Now, there are certain things in there that do favor producers, that do favor the companies, but generally laws regarding goods across the world are generally favorable towards the consumer. If you were to buy a good, let's say a car, and it did not work, well, you would be entitled to have that car either repaired or restored or get a new car that did work. You can't just sell people things that don't work, that don't function the way you expect them to function. You have an expectation as a consumer when you buy a product that it will be able to be used for its intended purpose. That's a reasonable expectation. And a game, you'd imagine, you'd be able to play. Very simple logic there. Well, as a license, switching your mind to a license is permission to do an activity. So it's saying you can do an activity. We are giving you that permission. However, the law regarding licenses favors producers, and that's how the legal distinction is relevant, because with licenses, generally they are terminable, meaning they can be stopped at any time at the discretion of the person who grants the license. So saying, essentially, hey, the company controls this, and whenever they want to stop it or whatever they want to do with it, that's up to them. They fully control this. And companies like this because, well, they like control. They like to be able to dictate what they can and can't, what they have to do, when they do it, the support, etc. And they want to control their product and how it morphs and how it goes. And they don't want to see people modding it or changing it in any way because they want you to just buy the new product. They don't want you to go and mod an old product and play that forever. No. They want you to go buy the second and third and fourth version. We've even seen this now with certain companies that want to shut down your older versions of games so you can't play them. Borderlands. So that said, what is Stop Killing Games? So Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement, and this is their own terminology, that started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they've sold to consumers, to customers. An increasing number of video games are effectively sold as goods, so they're marketed as goods, so they're advertised as goods. However, they don't have no stated expiration date. They indeed are designed to be unplayable as soon as the publisher decides to stop support. So they are planning to at some point pull the plug. They're just not telling you when, and they're not advertising that up front. They're not being honest about the fact that they're going to pull the plug on this at some point, or if it becomes financially unfeasible. The practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to customers, but makes preservation effectively impossible. Furthermore, the legality of the practice is largely untested in many countries, and that is very, very true. It's a huge gray area. Now, the law varies from country to country, but this is something that falls in the cracks. And this is what lawyers like, and lawyers like myself. And once again, I say this having worked as legal counsel and having drafted many sort of arrangements where we grant people licenses because we don't want to give over control. We want to give temporary permission. So we say, sure, we'll give you a license, but we know in our heart of hearts, and as lawyers, it's the evil heart of hearts, that at some point we're going to rug them. We're going to pull the cord. We're going to pull the carpet out from under them, and we're going to take that permission away. It's an illusion of handing over control and handing over ownership, but without actually doing that. And Stop Killing Games wants to call that out, wants to change that. Now, what happened with this movement? Well, at first, it really didn't pick up speed. And one of the people that was blamed for this was the creator out there, Pirate Software. Now, there's a lot of drama and stuff involving him, and I'm going to try to stick to the relevant facts here, the very relevant facts. But his argument, his chief argument, appears to be summarized as don't go the regulation route. So government regulation, bad. I don't like that. Now, I will say, to be sympathetic and to make a comment here, I'm no fan of government overregulation. In fact, I would say earlier in my career, I was very harsh against government regulation because there's many instances of government overregulation. And that can be a problem. That can kill industries. That can kill consumers. That can take away a lot. You do need to be very careful and very narrow when you use government regulation. However, even I, who am largely opposed to broad overregulation, understands that at certain points, there is a point at which there is a need for a larger entity, typically a government, but could also be a change in the law, to step in and fix things. There needs to be a stronger power that is coming in to say, hey, you can't do this, companies, because this is wrong. You can't be doing this to consumers because this is not right. You should not be doing this to consumers. It is essentially deceiving them. It's the form of deception. So I think Pirate Software came out a little too strong and was kind of straw manning some of the problems with this at first. And because of that, this didn't get much support. It looks like this wasn't going to get the signatures it needed. And it needed a lot of signatures, to be clear. Under the EU Citizens Initiative, it needed 1 million signatures to get attention of the EU. I believe in the UK it was 100K. Now, that's a lot, and it needed a lot of people to go. And by the way, Americans using VPNs, yeah, that's not going to work. They're going to check it. They're going to check the list. You got to be legitimate EU citizens. So it's a lot. It's a lot to get that many people to sign a petition. And it looks like that wasn't going to happen until an incident with the very same Pirate Software and World of Warcraft. Now, without going too much into details of this drama, because of course that is logged very well in the annals of the internet elsewhere, essentially there was some pushback against Pirate Software based on his behavior in a hardcore World of Warcraft guild. And after that, he caught some heat, and many of his takes caught heat. One of the takes that caught heat was Stop Killing Games. People looked at that and said, wait a second, we have a problem with him now because of this drama, but we have a problem with a lot of his takes. We're looking at a lot of this stuff this guy's doing, and we don't like it. And Stop Killing Games, yeah, we don't like that. And more creators got the attention of this topic and started talking about it. And one huge one was, of course, PewDiePie, one of the biggest creators out there on the internet. And he said, of course, thank you all for the amazing support on my recent videos. I love how much I can nerd out and share whatever with you guys. In the comments, I've seen some of you mention Stop Killing Games. And I want to say I 100% support this movement. It ties in perfectly with what I've talked about in my video, ownership over software and the games we buy. Strongly encourage you to sign the petition, www.stopkillinggames.com. By the way, that is still the link today, and you should go there to look at that and to sign that if you're in the EU or UK. or if you're outside, you should share it, just like PewDiePie says. And of course, he wasn't the only one. People like Asmongold just dropping this week. 10 months and over 800K signatures later, the Stop Killing Games initiative is almost across the finish line for 1 million. If you're from the EU and care about game preservation and consumer rights, consider signing the petition, Stop Killing Games. So with these big names coming out, of course, things turned around. The UK petition got over 100K signatures. This is to prohibit publishers irrevocably disabling video games they've already sold. So it's updating the law there. And then you have the EU, and this is as of filming, is 14,000 from the million threshold. So that's 98% as of time of filming. I guarantee you by the time this comes out, by the time this video is released, I think it's going to cross this threshold. I think it's going to go over the Rubicon here and hit that 1 million. Now, by the way, I would encourage you once again to go and sign this, because there may be some that they're going to go through and vet and say and throw out and say, no, these are no good or these aren't great. So make sure we get this way over 1 million. Let's get it to 1.1, 1.2 million. So it's a clear mandate. And why is this good? Well, why are they winning? Why have they already won despite not getting there yet, but getting there soon? Well, they're winning because people are knowing about this and they're taking action. There's a lawsuit against Ubisoft involving the crew that was filed in the Eastern District of California. Now, this may have some procedural issues, and there may be some issues with this based on U.S. case law, but the issue is people are stepping up and taking action. And one thing I've always said on my channel is lawsuits are not always the way to win. And the way to win effectively is often through citizen movements, people's movements, because at the end of the day, both government and corporations have to listen to people when they speak up and say, we will not tolerate this. We will not put up with this. We will not buy this. We do not accept this as legitimate. That is something that brings attention, and bringing lawsuits, even if those lawsuits are dismissed, corporations, and I can say this once again, having been on the corporate side, don't like getting sued. They prefer to not get sued. And if they see that a bunch of people are going to try to sue them, even unsuccessfully, they can say, look, can't we just change this with a little bit of work and make this in a way that's going to make everybody happy? And the win comes that, well, they've already made those changes. Ubisoft themselves with the Crew 2 has said it's getting an offline mode. So that is already a W, with literally the sequel to the series that caused this problem, saying, hey, this is getting an offline mode. This is not going to be in the same situation. You're still going to be able to play the game, even if we no longer support it. I think that's a push in the right direction. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you have any other thoughts on this topic? Any deeper questions on it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next one.